That's true. Naked Palpatine.
Oh, you pick that one. Fresh out of the clone tank, nude Palpatine is my
Well, that's the first thing I think of when you say Dark Empire Palpatine.
Hello everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, narrated by Disney or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it. Legends. I have had laryngitis and sickness, and have been unable to record. And honestly, I was going to read because, like, you can still read if you're, not feeling good, but I just did not want to do anything. I just wanted to sleep and relax. And so that's what I've been doing for a bit. I did finish the second book in the Corellian trilogy, Assault at Selonia. It's cool. There we got Thraken back there. Alright. So we got this second one. Overall, I enjoyed it. The biggest issue with this book being that it's primarily filler. So, like, you absolutely do not need this. Or, I mean, you need this, sorry, I should say, but it's meandering in a lot of it, is what it feels like. It's setting up a lot, but it's meandering. I think this trilogy probably would have been better suited to be a duology. I think that could have worked much better. That being said, I still enjoyed my time with it. It's just there's a lot of parts you're like, move forward, please. But there's some really fun stuff in here. For example, Thraken himself. We saw him talk at the end of the last book, but here we get like a full-on confrontation with him and Han Solo, and that's a lot of fun. I think Thraken is a really good villain, and he's really interesting to listen to. He's very sadistic, very mean, very mirror universe Han Solo. But at the same time, there's actual like stuff with him. Like he's like a very like racist person. Well, not racist. He's very speciesist. Only humans should be allowed. And so he's got his whole gang going on. Luke is tasked with getting help from, of all things, which makes this book trilogy rank way up there for me, just for the simple fact, too, that it re-involves Bakura. From the book novel Truce of Bakura, we get to see his former love interest again, and that's a lot of fun and interesting, and, get to see that his love interest had moved on, gotten married, had a kid, and I think that's one of the things with Luke in this era, especially when he was acting out of character after Callista. This is, at this point, we're like, about, what, 15 years after the films? Han and Leia are established, they have a family, and Luke is pushing toward 40 or 30. No, he's pushing toward 40 now, and he's still alone. And I think that really starts to weigh on him, and then he gets to see a former person that he used to be in a relationship with, and of course she got married, she had a kid, he's still alone, and I think that does affect him a lot. But it's really cool to go back to Bakura, to have that huge connection there. It's really, really awesome. The whole entire Thraken conversation at the beginning of the book, though, with Han was so fun, and people rag on it, but I mean, it was honestly, I thought it was pretty fun. The Selonian fight versus Han Solo. The Selonians are a species that kind of look like sea otters, and Han had to fight it. And I thought that was great, and it's another thing with Han Solo, like, he just manages to do this again and again. If you read the entire expanded universe, he just kind of keeps getting friends like this, like Chewbacca, that's of course the one from the movies, like, this animal, human sort of like mixture, friend that he has. And then if you go back to the A.C. Crispin Han Solo trilogy, in that first book, Paradise Snare, there was this, the cat-like, the Tagora, or whatever the fudge it's called, and he was friends with that. And then here again, we have these Selonians that he kind of befriends. So I just think it's really funny how Han constantly does that. Mara Jade is again in this book. The only thing that's a little out of place is that Han and Leia both continue to like assume that she might be working for the bad guys, which just doesn't make sense. But that being said, it's still really good to see her here, and I have a lot of fun with her here. I've heard other people review this book, like I think Meg Reviews did, and just like doesn't like think that Mara really feels like Mara. I don't know if I agree. I mean, it doesn't like strongly. There's not the book doesn't focus on her, so it never really seems like it definitely doesn't like seem like right off the page Mara Jade from the Thrawn trilogy, but it also doesn't necessarily contradict anything that she's like. It just doesn't give off the same personality necessarily, but that's just because it's a different writer. And that applies even in New Jedi Order. It just happens to hide it better because, you know, if you want to argue they're better writers, that's fine. But, you know, like Mara, I think is consistent throughout. She just, may not be the exact same character throughout in terms of like the interaction she has. But by and large, there's nothing contradictory about her character in this book. At one time, Han mentions Corellian values, which I thought was really cool, which is that you never involve innocence and you protect the family. Those are like Corellian like values all Corellians are supposed to hold, which Thraken does not. Um, and I don't remember if it was the last book or this book, but we get introduced to Tendra, who will become in the future Lando's wife, and so that's a lot of fun. And she's dealing with her own stuff. I don't have too much to say about it, but there's stuff going on there. And of course, Anakin finds these underground things on Drawl, these underground like tunnels or whatever, leading to like this repulsor stuff, which is connected to Centerpoint Station because of the mysterious somebody built the Corellian system as a means of something and made this kind of system exist. With all the planets and everything the way it is. Something created the Corellian system. It's kind of a huge legend slash rumor that it was not random chance, was not just the makings of, scientific, accidents. It was a deliberate thing made is the um, legend, which of course we get further in the EU, we know that that is exactly the case, that it was intentionally built that way to store or keep something at bay. But we'll get more into that way down the line. But yeah, I really enjoyed the second book. It is, again, it feels like meandering. There's a bunch of moving parts that are leading to the finale. I had fun with it, but it does kind of feel like, oh, here's not filler, but like we're gonna meander a bunch. Like this probably could have been like 100 pages of a book, but they stretched it out to 300 or 298, whatever it was, so that way you could have a second book in a trilogy. But I don't think you really needed that. You could have just had like a longer second book, kind of like Hand of Thrawn did, except that I think this one warrants 3 books more than the other one does, or warrants 2 books, whereas Hand of Thrawn I think really only needed 1. But yeah, so I really enjoyed it. And up next, we're moving on to the finale to the Corellian trilogy, which is Showdown at Centerpoint. I didn't spoil it too much, really. There's still a lot I kind of just skipped down on for if you want to read it. I didn't have too many things I wrote down, so I didn't want to make an entire spoiler-free section for something so short because I didn't have too much to say. I didn't ruin too much of the plot for you, just mention some parts that I liked. But yeah, it was really fun, and I still think that this trilogy is pretty good. But we'll see how I feel when we get to the finale. So I'll see you when that happens, and until next time, may the Force be with you.